Hello and welcome to Tech of the Month, the show where we bring you product news and reviews from the last 4 weeks on Cycling Weekly Tech. Today we are going to be looking at the new Garmin Rally pedals. We've got 5 pairs of £100 shoes, and we've also got this rather dreamy looking specialised tarmac. So kicking things off with the headlines. March 21st marked Shimano's 100-year centenary anniversary. Now we were expecting Dura-Ace to be launched to coincide with that 100-year date. There was a countdown website. We were all really pretty excited, and we were keeping our eyes very firmly planted on that website. And what emerged was the chance to purchase a coffee table book. And there wasn't any Dura-Ace. So we are still waiting. We have, however, been taking a look at patents that Shimano has submitted, and they show that we are likely to be expecting a 12-speed group set, one with a wireless rear mech, but not potentially completely wireless, and also one using piezoelectronic technology, which is a lot like the technology that we see in cigarette lighters and would do away with the coin cell battery that we see elsewhere.
Also in the news was the launch of the new Wahoo Speedplay pedal. Now, Wahoo bought Speedplay in 2019, and for the last 2 years they've been licking the iconic lollipop design into shape. So what have they actually done? So they've streamlined the range down to 4 models. There's the comp, which is basically 105 level. Then comes the zero, which is this one here, which is jumps straight up to somewhere between Ultegra and Dura-Ace level. And then there's the Aero, which is the reworked version of the one that Bradley Wiggins rode to the hour record in 2015. And then the top of the range one is the Nano, which is the super light one, and it costs £379.99. So what Wahoo have done is they've made these much more easy to live with. You don't have to replace the grease every 2,000 miles anymore because they've got sealed bearings here. The pedal body themselves has been redesigned so that it has this metal beveled edge, which makes it easier to clip into and release, and it also gives it better longevity than before, which the plastic end was likely to wear. Overall, it looks like a really nice job. We're really looking forward to riding these. Mm-hmm.
And we were expecting a power meter version at some point, but it's not here yet.
Yeah, we were really looking forward to that. The PowerLink Zero, we know it's going to be called the PowerLink Zero, but that's all we know at the moment. And we know that it's going to be launched in the summer. There are no pricing details at the moment, not even a picture, but at a guess it's going to be lollipop shaped. Mm-hmm.
Now, last month we spoke about the Canyon Aeroad and its plague of problems and issues. First one was the seat post, which was seeing wear as a result of excessive flex. It was intentional, but wasn't intended to cause damage. And then the second one was the handlebar. Canyon has now extended the stop ride notice to July, saying it will provide riders with a reinforced drop bar, but it is compensating CFR owners with €1,300 and SLX owners with €1,000. The compensation will no doubt be welcome, but we just really hope those Aeroad owners also have a second bike and they aren't stuck inside until July. The seat post fix, the brand says, is due in autumn, though it hasn't given a specific month for this. However, what's really interesting is that we did see Mathieu van der Poel was still riding his old Aeroad at various different races. So he rode it at Strade Bianchi, rode it at Tirreno Adriatico, where he went for a pretty amazing breakaway effort, I think we'll all agree. Chose to ride the current Aeroad, but it had holes drilled in order to have external cable routing so that he could run the old cockpit and therefore not have any issues over the handlebar. So Canyon initially said that its riders were going to ride the old Aeroad or the Ultimate. He obviously seemed so in love with the current Aero that he wanted it to be adjusted so that he could ride it instead. Which is interesting because the bike is 4.4 watts faster than the old bike, which, if you ask me, is not huge. Saved about 168 grams. It was also more comfortable, but to me they're not massive differences, but he clearly was adamant that he wanted to ride that bike. So it was interesting to see, and we will continue to monitor Canyon's progress around these Aeroad issues as more news comes out.
Let's have a look at some of the products we've been reviewing recently. Now, I've been riding the Lapierre Aircode DRS 8.0, which is the aero bike of the Groupama FDJ team. I've given it 9 out of 10. Now, this is £6,299, so it's not really exactly what you'd call a budget option, but I would say it's up there with the SL7s and the Madons and the TCRs of this world. And it's definitely not as common as those, so you won't see another one on your club run. And it is a seriously fast bike, really fast bike. And I don't think it was all down to the aero position because the contact points are actually pretty similar. What I put it down to was a very steep seat angle in a very powerful position. I felt like I was on the base bar of a time trial bike because it has this zero offset seat post.
So I tested the Physique Luce saddle. This saddle actually launched quite some time ago, and at the time I went on the launch event, went to have a look at the factory, and Physique did an awful lot of research. It's a women's saddle, and they had various different surveys and websites and questionnaires for women to kind of give feedback on where they found discomfort in saddles so that they could try to develop something better. One of the interesting things they did is they had this kind of flex zone at the rear, and I really liked that about the saddle. However, I did only give it 6 out of 10. And obviously with saddles it's a little bit difficult because they are really personal, but I can also only review based upon my personal experience. And I found that getting into an aggressive position, the cutout was way, way too narrow. If I sat up in a much more sort of endurance position, so I put my hands right on the tops, it did feel a lot better. I didn't get so much discomfort with that really narrow cutout. However, the rear of the saddle is available in a 144 and a 155 width. And actually, I don't think that's all that wide. So there are an awful lot of people that would want a wider saddle and therefore wouldn't be all that well catered for, which is why I gave that saddle a 6 out of 10. So sticking with the women's focused theme, we also published a sports bra group test on the website. We tested 6 different models, and sports bras are definitely an area where the bike industry massively needs to improve. So we've got brands all over the place developing these really, really good base layers and these really good jerseys that wick sweat and dry really quickly. And what they're not considering is that all the women in the world are wearing a sports bra underneath that doesn't wick sweat very well and doesn't dry very quickly. So it seems like a massive oversight. There are, however, some that are an awful lot better than others. The winner for me was the Shock Absorber Multi-Sport Support Bra, and it's interesting that the winner came from outside of the cycling industry. We have plenty of cycling brands attempting to make sports bras, but I would wager that some of them aren't doing an incredible job. So the Shock Absorber model got 9 out of 10. I was really impressed by it. It's interesting that it came from outside of the cycling industry, and I would say there's definitely area for cycling brands to improve there.
We also tested the Prime Primavera Aero Carbon Handlebar. Now this comes from Wiggles house brand Prime, and it's $149.99, which is a pretty good price for a carbon aero bar like that. The cable integration was excellent, the weight was really competitive for the price. It comes in a 38cm width, and that's probably one of the only areas where we thought it could be improved. A lot of people are going for a 36 now for better aerodynamics. The other thing was we could have done with a few more markings for setting it up a bit more accurately. But other than that, we gave it 9 out of 10, and it's an excellent handlebar.
So next up, we will take an in-depth look at some of the product that we're testing at the moment. Now, I have a product that I have mixed feelings about, I suppose. It is the Garmin Rally Pedal. These launched towards the end of March. I've been testing them throughout March. They're looking pretty dirty, as you can hopefully see. And I have a long relationship with Garmin's power meter pedals, and it's been pretty turbulent along the way. We'll start with the headline news, and the headline news is that these have a removable spindle so that you can then put them into other pedal bodies. So you could use, this is on the Look pedal body, but you can also run them on a Shimano body, which will be very exciting news for an awful lot of people that have been after a power meter pedal with a Shimano platform. And then even more excitingly, you can also buy a Shimano SPD pedal body, which is for sort of a cross country. So they called that the XC version. So if you wanted, you could have a Look pedal, and then you could also have an XC body, and you could therefore use your power meter pedal both on the road and also off-road. Or you could also have a Shimano body and the XC body. If you followed the Garmin vectors over the last couple of years, you'll know that I, in 2018, did an initial review. I thought they were excellent. They got 10 out of 10. But then over time, I noticed problems with power spikes, with dropouts. I did 36,000 watts at Herne Hill Velodrome, which frankly, wow.
Did you win?
No, I didn't. Yeah, there were some problems, it's fair to say. And Garmin fully admitted this. They said that the main reason was that and it's something I noted in the review, the body on the old Vector pedal had a plastic thread, and then you had a door with a metal thread. So you were threading metal into plastic. And I don't think that's an excellent idea for an awful lot of at-home mechanics. And the result was a lot of people cross-threaded them and then water got in. Now, this is a user error, but the fact is an awful lot of users made the error, at which point I'd say it becomes a manufacturing error when it affects an awful lot of people. So when I received these and realised we've got a metal thread going into a metal body, which is exactly what I said we needed in the review, I was pretty thrilled. And I'm really happy to see that. So hopefully this will be the end of the power spikes and the power dropouts that Garmin had with these pedals. I mean, I've been testing them for about a month, and I am very happy to report that they've been excellent so far. I haven't had any problems, but it is still early days, so I don't want to have a celebration yet, but so far, so good. And also, not to undermine the fact that now Shimano users have the option of having one of these pedals. The range is broken down into the RKs, which is the Look version, the RS, which is the Shimano version, and then the XC, which is the Shimano SPD version. You can get them as one-sided or dual-sided, just as before. If you buy one-sided, you can bump them up to two-sided at a later date. So the weights start from 320 grams, which is pretty much what they had before. It's definitely very competitive. Battery life is 120 hours. These have ANT+ and Bluetooth compatibility, which is what you'd expect, and the accuracy is plus or minus 1%. And that is everything that I have to say on these pedals for now, but there will be a full review on the website. Give it a good few months because I want to test them thoroughly.
We've also been busy testing £100 shoes. We called in 5 pairs, and these ones were the winners, and these are the DHB Dorica Carbons. They have a full carbon sole, which is amazing for a shoe at this price. And also the upper is really comfortable. They've got this synthetic leather, which is perforated for good ventilation. The lace closure is really good. It means that you can really make sure that you've got your foot really comfortable. The only thing that I probably wasn't quite sure about was the heel, which is big, and as we're going to talk about, sizing can really vary, and you get bigger heel cups in entry-level shoes, we found. So I think for me, if they could just tighten up the heel cup a bit, then that would be looking at a 10 out of 10. But as it was, I gave it a 9, but it was the best shoe that we had on test. For £100 or a penny under £100 with the carbon sole and the lace closure, we just thought that they were the best by a long way.
The next in line was Specialized Torch 1.0. They got an 8 out of 10. The sole was really nice and stiff despite being nylon that was reinforced. It had the boa dial and also Velcro at the front. They did come up a little bit wide. The heel cup was just not very well fitted, which was a bit of a minus point, but they were a good shoe. These
Shimano RC3s, I gave them 7. They got a really nice clean look, also available in black. I like the look of them. They were comfortable, but the sole was just too flexible.
I also gave the Bontrager Stavros and the Giro Stylus, they both got 7 out of 10. The Bontrager has this really interesting sole design, and it does mean that the sole is an awful lot stiffer despite being nylon. Those come in at £99.99. They were just let down by the fit. It was just far too big, and I had to really pull the Velcro down over the edge of my foot in order to get them to fit right, and that was a problem. The Giro Stylus, we do have to remember, are quite a lot cheaper than all the others. So on test they're £89.99, which, I mean, £10 isn't a huge difference, but as a percentage it certainly is. The soles on those were a little bit flexy, and I also didn't like where it had like a metal hook and eye, and it meant that the metal, when you pulled the Velcro down, the metal kind of dug in, was a little bit uncomfortable. So although, I think you're getting a decent shoe, they are at a nice price point, but I felt that, compared to those DHBs, they haven't got the performance that is available at that price point. So we can't have our colleague Stefan in the studio because of COVID guidelines, but he has brought along a very exciting new handlebar for you to have a look at.
So this month I brought along Coefficient's new Road Grace handlebar. These come with a clever design which allows the rider to adopt a similar position to the invisible aero bars position that the UCI recently banned. But crucially, the position you can adopt and the handlebar itself both comply with the UCI rulebook as it's currently written. The reason why the invisible aero bars position has been banned by the UCI is because of the lack of hand contact between the rider and the bars. But Coefficient's road race bar gets around this by having an out-front bridge, so even when you're in that narrow position with your forearms resting on the bars, there's still something for you to hold on to, and therefore complying with the UCI regulations. But it's important that that bridge is integrated into the handlebar itself, because there's also a regulation which prohibits the attachment of any extra component or extension to a set of handlebars. But obviously, we're not all pro racers having to work around the constraints of the UCI, and so what are the benefits for the everyday rider? Well, firstly, although there's nothing to stop you from assuming the invisible aero bars position yourself when you're out on the roads, holding that position does take quite a degree of skill, and it's also not particularly comfortable. And so the road race bar offers a position which is easier to maintain and also a little bit safer. And as rider position is responsible for far more of the aerodynamic drag than the bike or any particular component, if you want to travel a little further or faster without reaching for a bit of e-assistance, putting yourself in a more aerodynamic position can have a far greater effect on your speed than upgrading your wheels, for instance. And viewed in that light, perhaps the £379 or $399 asking price starts to look a little bit more reasonable. Of course, in not being constrained by the UCI rulebook, a far cheaper solution for the everyday rider would be to purchase a cheap or second-hand set of aero extensions, and that would give much the same effect in terms of the aerodynamics. Although that said, the road race bar does make for a much sleeker and more minimalist setup, so there is an argument for it in terms of aesthetics. But there's much more to the bar than just the out-front bridge. Quite a lot of attention has been paid to the ergonomics of a handlebar. The reach is fairly short, making for a much more compact setup than the long and deep shapes of traditional handlebars. There's also 7 degrees of flare, which means that you can go a little bit narrower at the tops of the handlebars while still maintaining the same stance when you're on the drops. So this helps maximise your aerodynamics when in the aero hoods position, so with your elbows bent at 90 degrees with your forearms parallel to the road. But it also means for technical descents, when you're hunkered down in the drops, you've still got that width and that leverage for a feeling of confidence when taking the corners. Although like many aero handlebars, the tops have a flattened profile, the depth of this section actually varies with the width of the handlebars, making it easier for riders with smaller hands to grip the tops. Another nice touch is a little notch in the drops, which allows you to hook your thumb around and get a more secure grip. And the cable routing is another particular highlight of this bar, with a multitude of ports, which should make it easy to pair most shifter frame combinations out there. There's a total of 3 different ways for the cables to exit the handlebar. There's also a cutout in the handlebars to allow the cables to be routed directly through the stem.
So my bike of the month this month is the Specialized Tarmac SL7 Expert. Now this is actually the entry-level Tarmac, believe it or not. I think it's probably the most expensive entry-level bike we've seen in a while, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
But when you consider that the top of the range S-Works Tarmac SL7 is £11,750, everything's relative.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, this one comes in at
£5,250.
It's a lot, although to be fair to Specialized, they do have the SL6, so if you want to spend less, you can still get a Tarmac. And actually, I've ridden both the top-end SL7 and the old SL6, and I did prefer the SL6, so we'll just leave that there. But this is the SL7. This is the
SL7. You actually get to, for that price, for £5,250, there are actually 2 options. This one has Ultegra Di2 electronic gears. The other one has Ultegra mechanical. With this one, you get entry-level wheels, and they really are very basic wheels. These are GT Swiss R470 rims on Specialized Zone hubs. And you can actually buy those rims from Wiggle for 40 quid each. So the wheels are that cheap. So
if the decision was mine, unless I already had a wheel set, I would definitely go for mechanical and swankier wheels. I think you said you'd do the opposite.
Yeah, I mean, I was interested to see them doing this because a while ago there was a trend for the flagship bikes coming with really cheap wheels because the assumption was that you'd have your own racing wheels, and I haven't really seen that for a while, especially with this flagship S-Works SL7. You know, that has really super expensive Roval wheels. This is actually made of the 10R carbon, whereas the S-Works SL7 is made of 12R carbon, so the 12R carbon is going to be a bit lighter and stiffer. But that comes in at a pretty good weight, actually. 7.7 kilos, which is not too bad. I mean, you'd expect the S-Works to come in at pretty much on the UCI weight limit, but I think you're not really giving that much away by having that type of carbon and that build.
And the handlebar setup, so you've got a two-piece setup, which I think is potentially preferable to an aero cockpit that you have at the top end, because it does mean you've got more room for adjustment.
Yeah, the bar is with the S-Works you get the Aerofly 2 carbon aero bar, which is a lot cooler, and it probably saves you a few watts as well. It's lighter. But you know, a lot of people like the round bar like that, the shallow drop. It's a perfectly nice bar. I'd be happy with that.
And it's an aluminium bar, is that right? Yeah,
it's aluminium. Yeah.
As a racer, I would preference an aluminium handlebar. It's the first thing that hits the ground quite often in a crash, so it makes sense.
The paint, it's beautiful, isn't it? The other option is just a sort of silver fade, which for me, that's really nice. I would go with that one every time.
It stopped me in my tracks when I saw it in the workshop. I think it's really stunning. They've done a really nice job there. So you've also got S-Works turbo tyres on there, which can only be a good thing. So although they have got a very entry-level wheel, they have spec'd it with some very nice rubber, which I'm imagining is going to add to the ride quality quite significantly.
Yeah, I think it's going to ride really nicely.
So I really hope you enjoyed April's Tech of the Month. We will be back in around 4 weeks' time for another section of news and reviews from Cycling Weekly's tech team. If you did enjoy this video, please do hit the like button. Let us know if you've got any questions in the comments, and do subscribe if you'd like to see more of our content.